Welcome back to Bangkok. Well, one piece of news that didn't make the headlines here this week was the latest WikiLeaks revelation. It seems editors here were too nervous to refer to leaked US cables that named prominent individuals here that were secretly involved in the coup that deposed Thaksin Shinawatra in 2006. Explosive stuff if it were published. The possible source of that leak, Bradley Manning, is awaiting a court-martial and a possible life sentence in the US, charged with leaking a massive amount of intelligence material, allegedly to WikiLeaks. Maggie O'Kane from Britain's Guardian Films has this profile of the man and the case.
This is Bradley Manning, filmed at the opening of a Boston University Computer Society. He smiles, almost flirts at the camera. 4 months later, in May, Manning is a nervous wreck, chatting online to a famous hacker called Adrian Lamo. Online conversations which lead to his arrest, accused of the biggest intelligence leak in US military history.
Light them all up.
02 traffic, 260.
Come on, fire!
This video, known as Collateral Murder, will always be linked to Bradley Manning's name. It was released by the WikiLeaks website. It shows 2 American helicopter pilots admiring their work after they opened fire on suspected insurgents.
Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards. Nice. 2-6, Crazy Horse 1-8.
This is where Bradley Manning grew up. The town was stunned that the person accused of leaking military secrets to the world was one of their own.
Crescent is a rural community. We have approximately 2,000 people here. He was very, very bright, very, very intelligent. Since all this has begun, we've kind of looked up some of the old records and stuff. In his 7th grade year, I believe he was a straight-A student.
It seemed like he feared his father, like, you know, like, not in the same way that, like, I feared my dad. More fear than what I would call healthy. He loved his mom, for sure. He was always really into politics. He was always, you know, on September 11th, we were, you know, both he and I were just like, you know, we were really freaking out. He was very, very worried about the country's future. And that's because he loved America.
I swear by the lake on the mountain, I swear by blood that's red.
Manning moved to Wales in 2002 following his parents' divorce. His mother is Welsh. These days they're having fundraising fetes in support of the boy from Haverfordwest.
Until all oppression is ended, and I will never rest until all oppression is dead.
His school friends from those days remember him as a bit of a super geek, the king of the computer club.
I think what got Bradley so into computers was the fact that he was always around them from a young age. I remember him telling me that he learned computers because his old man had a computer when he was a kid, and he used to always spend his time on the computer then.
What he aimed for was to be some form of IT superpower, similar to that of like the Microsoft kind of like brand. I think he wanted to be renowned for his IT skills.
I can't remember him saying that he was specifically going to leave, so it was quite sudden. I remember finding out one day that he had gone. I can't recall a time when he said he was leaving. I think just one day he was there, and then the other day he'd gone back to America for whatever reason.
All our efforts are aimed at a clear goal: a free Iraq that can protect its people, support itself economically, and take charge of its own political affairs.
By the time he returned, America was immersed in 2 deadly wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Bradley Manning was 17. He wandered the country looking for a job in IT and a life. The jobs came and went, so he slept in his red pickup truck and wondered what was next. He desperately wanted to go to university, but joining the army and getting a military scholarship was the only way to pay for it. It would be a terrible price.
I mean, the kid was barely 5 foot, you know, 5'1", 5'2". He was a runt. And by military standards, by everybody that was around there, he was a runt, so pick on him. He's crazy, pick on him. He's a faggot, pick on him. The guy took it from every side. He couldn't please anyone.
This man, now based in Memphis, asked that we hide his identity. He trained side by side with Bradley Manning in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. He tells a shocking story of what happened to him there.
I mean, he was a wreck. He was a complete wreck. And this is for a boy who's pissing his pants and curled up in a fetal position on his bunk and constantly, screaming.
The officers training him had come to the conclusion that he was mentally unstable and recommended that he be discharged immediately.
One of my friends that was still at the discharge unit called me from his cell, and he said, he was giving me the updates, telling me what was going on, and then he said, Bradley's getting recycled. And I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. There's no way that this guy was getting recycled.
Recycling is Army slang for giving him another go. There was a shortage of computer intelligence analysts in Baghdad. They needed Manning in Iraq, whatever state he was in.
They were lowering recruitment standards like crazy. I mean, facial tattoos, too tall, too short, too fat, criminal records, didn't matter. I mean, they even upped the age limit. You could be 42 years old and still enlist for basic training. So it was take everybody you can get, keep a hold of everybody you can get.
So they pushed him through the system to the next base near Boston. Boston was a place where he felt free to be himself, intellectually and sexually. He was happy with Tyler, the man he loved. He attended gay rights demonstrations. And the day of his deployment to Iraq, his boyfriend Tyler attended a rally with a placard declaring himself to be an army wife, Manning's army wife.
It's Boston, in Boston, you don't really ask these questions about gay or straight or really think about it because it's not the measure of a person.
But Boston also held other attractions for Bradley Manning. This was where he was able to make contact with students at the prestigious MIT and Boston universities, the computer elite of America.
Some people call it this hacker culture in Boston. The name's actually a little bit misleading. What it really is, it's a very profound culture that is predicated on self-empowerment through technology with the goal of achieving some good social end.
Things may have been going well in Boston, but back on base, his commanding officers were again raising the alarm about sending him to Iraq. One said, "I felt he was a risk to himself and others." He was showing signs of instability, said another. But they were ignored, and Bradley Manning went to Iraq. He was sent to Forward Operating Base Hammer, 35 kilometers east of Baghdad.
It was in the middle of a desert. There was sand everywhere. We had dust storms, probably quite often, I don't know, once a month or so, as far as while I was there. It was not fun. It was nothing to do there, totally bored, and a bleak place. Everything was brown over there.
There was a fog. There was like a fog that would come in almost every morning that was pollution from nearby that just smelled sour and nasty and would wave through and linger and just, I don't know, it'd create an eerie atmosphere.
The morale, I think, generally was really low for everyone that was there that I talked to. All the soldiers pretty much didn't like it. Nobody had a purpose out there, so I think that affected a lot of people.
It's not clear what happened, but in December, his superiors took the bolt out of his gun. He was considered unfit to be carrying a functioning weapon. But there was still light at the end of the tunnel for Bradley Manning. He was going back to Boston at the end of the month, to freedom and to Tyler Watkins. But it was not the homecoming he was expecting.
It was kind of like an emailed Dear John letter. It ended seemingly abruptly, but Brad didn't really know that. I don't know if he just wasn't accepting it or if he just hadn't fully understood that his relationship was over.
Within days of his breakup, he turns up here at the launch party of Boston University's free hackerspace.
We had about 150 people that showed up to builds, and they were all just beautiful people, really, really advanced human beings.
This scene caught inadvertently on camera is the only footage of Bradley Manning.
Bradley Manning came in during this open house and toured the room, remarked a little bit about the computers in the room and about the power tools, and kind of showed through his lingo that he got what was happening, that he understood the culture. He seemed highly intelligent. That much was very obvious. He has this kind of presence about him that you understand really quickly. He's very highly intelligent.
But a few days after the party, it's back to Iraq, where morale and security in the intelligence section where he's working is deteriorating.
The laptop's sitting there with passwords. Everybody writes, like I said, you write their password down on a sticky note and set it by the computer. There wasn't a lot of security going on. If someone came into, let's say, the office I was in, the headquarter area I was in when I was on duty watching things, and they jumped on a computer, and I didn't necessarily knew them, but they're in uniform and all that good stuff, and they're on a computer, I'm not going to say, hey, whoa, excuse me, what are you doing, sir? You can't do that. I'm just going to be like, whatever.
This stuff was all in like a folder. It was like, it had like a generic name or whatever, so nobody would look into it, but it was all just set there for entertainment. That was pretty much the point of the folder, was entertainment, and it had a mix of games, sex, and violence. They love to watch these clips of Apaches gunning down people and whatnot. This is definitely entertainment.
On May the 7th, Bradley Manning punches a female officer in the face. He's disciplined and immediately demoted. He's told he is finally to be discharged from the army. He's lost his job, his boyfriend, and any chance of a university education. Bradley Manning will be court-martialed in December 2011. If convicted, he faces 52 years in prison.